So, Emma, what's happening today?
Today we've got a guest, who is Anna.
Hello there, welcome to our imaginary blanket fort. Come sit down with us and relax amongst the cozy pillows as we chat about parenting, connect with other parents like yourselves, and enjoy. You can enjoy our silly, family-friendly humour and watch as we attempt to do some arts and crafts. If you're watching on YouTube, that is. You join me, Elliot, and my wife, Emma. We live in Harrogate with our 2.5-year-old daughter, and this is Don't Wake the Baby. It's another guest special episode.
It is. And we're hopefully talking about milestones.
Yeah, like parenting milestones.
Yeah, but not for children, because we're used to their milestones, about parenting milestones.
We'll introduce Anna, I imagine, in a second, maybe, when we have her on, and say how we know her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you'll get to know her through this episode. But yeah, it's exciting to have another episode where we've got some other input.
Yeah.
Someone else joining us. So it's not just our experiences.
And as I said previously, I just like an excuse to have a chat with people I like.
This time, however, we're going to have all three of us on talking on the podcast because we know how it went last time when I wasn't involved.
When I was left unsupervised.
And things just got out of hand.
It did.
So I'm involved this time.
I'm just too interested in people, but apparently not about the right topics.
If you're new here, well, first of all, go back and listen to all the other episodes. This is like a special episode, so maybe not the best place to start, but if it is, you're welcome. Doesn't matter. Who knows? So you can slowly get to know us through every episode. I'm Elliot. I'm the one who has selective hearing, as my wife would say.
I think as was proven when you had your hearing tested.
Yeah, I'm a typical man who doesn't seem to be able to hear things. Emma was so convinced that I wasn't hearing things that I was sent for a hearing test.
Well, I'd already had a hearing test, and I was like, why don't you get one? You get, like, money off for your partner going. And we currently have a discussion how he could never hear the baby, and I could always hear the baby. And I was telling him things, and he couldn't hear. So I was like, you really need a hearing test. And I was 100% sure he'd come back and he'd be like, oh, yeah, either he'd got too much, gunk in his ear, or he had some kind of hearing problem. But no, he came back with excellent hearing.
Perfect hearing.
Perfect.
There you go. So there you go. I'm the one with perfect hearing. What, you have perfect hearing, Emma?
Yes, I do. I also got thinged with perfect hearing.
I like this one because I feel like in a lot of instances we swap the kind of typical gender roles. I often associate a lot more with the kind of stereotypical woman's role in the house and things like that. But in this instance, I feel like I'm a very typical man.
And is that a good thing?
Yeah. Toxic masculinity. It's all great.
Very proud of this act. He doesn't listen.
So go stick another load of washing on and come and join us as we talk with our special guest, Anna.
Welcome, Anna. This is if we don't know her. How we know you is a bit difficult.
It's a bit weird.
It is a bit.
We both went to the same place at the same time. So a friend of ours was like, oh, you guys are both going to this place. Why don't you be friends?
I didn't want to put in, we knew we'd be at the same place at the same time with a lot of old people. And we were worried there'd be nobody else there with children. So a friend who both knew was like, hey, you're both taking your kids to a place full of old people. Why don't you hang out together?
Maybe we should just avoid the whole how did we meet.
I think maybe we just
situation.
So I always say when I meet people people are like, oh, how do you meet, like with like John or with anybody basically that's Methodist at our age, I'm like, we're young and Methodist. That's how we know each other.
Do you want to explain, Anna, about your family?
I have 2 children. One of them is 3.5, more than 3.5, almost 4. And the other one was 1 in October. So the first one was like a proper lockdown baby, like born in the height of lockdown. And the second one was born just after we moved away from everyone we know. I have some really interesting perspectives on parenting. I always like it when people say like, oh, it takes a village. And I'm like, where's mine?
Yeah.
Send me the village, please.
Shall we introduce what we thought we would talk about?
So today we're talking about parenting milestones. So people used to children having like, milestones for different things, but this one's going to focus on parenting milestones that are unexpected. Well, that surprise you.
Yeah. I think, I don't know about you, Anna, but we were particularly inspired by often your posts on social media that are very honest about kind of how you've kind of grown as a parent and how that kind of feels as well. Not just like, I suppose, a lot of parenting, we only see the surface level stuff. And maybe some of this is about digging deeper into like the backstory of how we actually get to some of those points in parenting. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm really conscious of what I share online and like sharing things with my children that just look wonderful and how guilty that can make other people feel. So like in Advent, I did a little reel every day and it was just loads of really cute clips of my kids, right? They were gorgeous and it looked like I had this like wonderful life where me and my children just do magical things all of the time. And loads of people said to me, they're like, oh, how are your kids so well behaved? And I'm like, this is how easy it is to present your life as perfect on social media. Because my life's not perfect and my children aren't perfect. But if that's all we share, that's what people perceive. So I try really hard to be open and honest about it. I mean, it goes back a really long time to back. I had like some mental health struggles and I found that nobody talks about that. And I think from that point, I was just like, I just want to be open and honest about how my life is so that other people feel able to be open and honest too. And so that people don't feel that they're the only ones that are in this situation. Because people quite often are like, oh, you're such a great mum. You do these great things. I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a bad mum. I think I'm all right. But, like, I am all right. I'm average. I'm just very good at sharing.
I don't think many people go around thinking like, I'm a fabulous parent. I think we all have that bit of sense of we're failing a little bit here and there.
Well, I always find it funny. People often think when I do like a craft or something with Lily, it's come out of my own imagination. And I'm like, no, I saw someone online do it. And I was like, oh, that looks like a good idea. I'll do it.
Another bit before we forget, because we're very in danger of forgetting what we're going to do.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding.
Parenting achievement time.
It's very professional.
So I don't know if this is actually an achievement or just like a really funny thing that my child has been doing recently. But as you know, it's just been Christmas for the people listening to this. 6 months down the line, it's January right now, and Christmas has just happened. And people keep asking my child if Santa has been. Guess what he says every time? No. No, Santa didn't come to my house. So my parenting achievement is that everybody I know now thinks I didn't buy presents for my child for Christmas.
Do you know why he says no?
He said this to one of our cousins, and so she turned round to the adult next to her and was like, oh, was he on the naughty list then? It happened at church. Oh, it was like the children's address thing, and they did that thing where they're like, oh, let's ask people things. Then my children were the only children there. Oh, Elias, did Santa come to your house? No, to the whole church. I'd like to be very clear that Santa did come to our house.
So, talking about parenting milestones, I don't know where you want to kick us off from, either of you, but what do you think the first milestone, or what's the first kind of particular milestone that sticks in your memory as a parent?
I think probably for me, it's like it was the first big one, because it's hard to, when I was trying to think of my list, I've like got a list in front of me, and I was trying to untangle what is a parenting milestone, like that's something that's for me, and what is a child milestone, and where is it tangled. So obviously there's like the obvious things like, I don't know, like coming home from hospital and all that, but I think they're like normal things that we recognise as big.
Yeah.
I think the first notably big one was the first time we left the house together as a family. Now, I don't remember this with my first because it was lockdown. We didn't leave the house ever, so who knows. With my second, I really clearly remember the four of us going to the big Tesco. Oh yeah.
Exciting trip out.
That was a big day in my house. Do you remember your first trip out with Lily as a family?
Again, we were kind of at the end of lockdown, but
Yeah.
I think we all went out when we went to register her.
Yeah, no, that was the first trip out we had. The first people we visited were our neighbours.
That's true.
That's the first, like,
We did
social
Yeah.
thing we did because it had been locked down. So we actually could go around and sit in the neighbour's garden with them.
Oh, well, with Elias, actually, the first time we left the house with him would have been to go and stand on the doorstep and clap the NHS. Like, the first people to meet him were our neighbours.
But I do vividly remember like going to take her to register the birth because you went in.
Only I was allowed in.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that a lockdown thing?
That was a lockdown thing.
Yeah.
That's
so I was left.
interesting because we both went to register Elias, and that will have been before.
I mean, I suppose there were periods where.
Well, it went
Yeah,
down.
that's true.
Yeah.
There were like, because that was also like around Eat Out to Help Out time. So
So yeah, I remember like being sat outside on the Stray in Harrogate, being left with the pram and Lillian, and kind of felt quite proud. Like we had like a little baby. It was still very novel at that point. So
Novel.
yeah, sounds like a pet.
Yeah. One of my first, I think, milestones was when I was in hospital and I had to like advocate for myself. So basically a very rude nurse came up because I said, oh, can I have like please a glass of water? And she was like, you can go and walk and get it yourself. And I was like, I've just had a C-section. I can't physically move the lower half of my body. So it'd be really good if you could actually go get that for me. And I remember then she was just like, oh, okay. So I was quite proud of myself because I think before I had a child, I was quite meeker. Like I wouldn't have bothered saying anything. But I think it puts you into situations where you're like, actually, I would like a drink of water. And I'm physically unable to do that.
You've kind of already alluded to it, Anna, but I wonder how you've got two children. So other parenting kind of milestones, are they different things for each child? And how does that feel in terms of reflecting on what things stand out for you?
So the most notable one of all of my parenting milestones, I think the thing that I still feel now was the biggest achievement was the first time I left the house with both of them by myself. So, like, leaving the house as a family was, like, a thing. I remember it, and it was, like, a big deal, partly because I was leaving the house for the first time after, it was about a week in, so after surgery. But when I went out and it was just me and two kids, like, that was major. That was, like, a big thing. And I think just most of them are bigger when you've got two because you're doing all of those achievements, but also with a toddler in tow.
Yeah.
And everything's harder with a toddler in tow.
When they try and help now, I'm like, that's not really helping. Like, it's really nice you're trying to help, but that's not helpful.
Oh, thank you for helping. I really appreciate it. So yeah, going out on my own with the kids. And then the other thing that I really remember that's not necessarily different for having two, but it was the other sort of big one for me was, and I think this is probably one of the Facebook posts that I've made that you might have picked up, but like, I remember the first time I went with the two kids on my own, and we went to the library, and we had to walk. Like that was a big thing. But then I remember almost a year later doing the exact same walk with the two kids on my own, and thinking, oh, I can do this now. Like this, I don't want to say it's easy because it's not easy, but like this isn't a big deal. And a year ago, this was huge. And now I can look back and go, I'm all right at this. I can do this. I'm a competent adult human who can care for her children. That's amazing. Look how far I've come. And I think that was the big thing for me. It's sort of looking back and seeing them and seeing how far things have gone since.
Yeah, now it's more of an everyday thing rather than like a big accomplishment. I think I was a bit like that because I went back to C-section talk. After my C-section, I saw a lot of mums would be like, we've gone hiking with my newborn. I'd be like, great. I can't really move that much. So
I
like,
walked
even
down
going
the stairs today.
yeah, I got down the stairs. I remember then when I did get to take Lily out in a pram and I got to like walk along by myself, I was like, I feel like I'm doing it. I'm going for a walk with my child.
When Elias was about 6 weeks, maybe I think it was probably about 8 weeks, we went for a walk, and it was at Chatsworth. Do you know Chatsworth?
Yeah. We've been to
So-
Chatsworth.
They've got the big house and the gardens, but they've also got like the land, and they've got this waterfall. And if you know it, like you'd know where I meant, but if you've not got a clue, it's quite high up, right? So
Yeah.
we did this walk. I had Elias in the carrier, and I was like, well, it's been 8 weeks since I had the section, so I'm fine now. I'm all right. And obviously in the house, I'd been absolutely fine. And then I did this, and it must have been a good 2 hours just to get up to the waterfall.
Yeah.
And it was like this really steep thing, and I had the baby in the carrier. I got to the top, and I did it, and I felt like an absolute superwoman. Like, I thought, this is amazing that I've done this. But afterwards, I was like, what are you doing? What made you think that you could do that? Because I convinced myself I was fine now.
We had a very similar... We went on holiday when Lily was about 6 or 8 weeks, and we went and stayed in Bakewell.
And we went to Chatsworth.
Ah, there you go.
And yeah, it was really hot.
It was like, really hot.
It must have been like a heat wave
did.
couple of weeks.
We hadn't prepared for it being that hot.
It was definitely a challenge.
It was.
I don't think we were ready.
It was quite nice though, wasn't it?
Well, that was, again, it sticks in my memory because it's one of the ones where we kind of came back from that and...
Being like, we did it.
Yeah, it was like maybe not the best idea, but we came back and we're like, well, if we managed that, it was out of our usual environment. It was really hot. We survived.
Yeah.
Lily survived. And then we were like, well, if we can manage that, then we kind of...
Yeah, we've got it.
Yeah.
We actually, with Eve, when she was born, and this is definitely like with the second child, it's just so because you just have to get on with stuff that you didn't with the first. You could just like take your time with them, but like with the second, you really have to just carry on with normal life, right? And we went to stay at my parents' house, which is about an hour and a half drive. And I don't think she was quite 2 weeks old. We were like, yeah, we'll just go there and stay over. Why not? And actually, it was really helpful because it meant we had other people to entertain the toddler. But now I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did it. Yeah, 2 weeks after a section, I'll sit in a car for an hour and a half with my tiny baby and stay over at someone else's house. And like we had like a bonfire party. We were all sat outside like Eve's first fireworks, 2 weeks old. So at least half of the ones I've written down involve going out of the house.
Yes.
Like just every time you go out of the house in a different scenario, I think is a milestone.
Yeah.
So the other one
I
I've
remember
got.
your parents would be like, oh, what have you done today? And we'd be really excited, like, oh, we've been to the shop. And they go,
Right.
oh, is that all you've done? And we'd be like, yeah. But for us, that's really exciting because we managed to go to the shop and take the child with us.
I mean, I still think the supermarket's a trip out, especially, and this is something that I've got, when I get to go by myself.
Oh, hoo, hoo. Yeah, shopping alone's lovely.
Because I think the other big one for me is like the first time just going out without the children. And then that also has tears, I would say. So like there's the first time where like I went out and John was home with the kids. So that was a big thing. But then the first time you go out and someone else is with the kids, and that's in the daytime. And then, and this is the one that we've only actually met recently with Eve, is the first time you go out and somebody else does bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I suppose the first time you left me with Lily was when you went away with your sisters.
For her hen do.
For Kirsty's hen do, and I was left overnight with Lily. So that was quite a big moment for you and for me.
Yes, for both of us.
Yeah. And then I do distinctly remember when we left Lily with our nanny and we both went out together shopping.
It's always shopping, isn't it? It's always shopping.
Yeah.
Shopping.
I was like, we weren't even doing anything particularly I can't think why we'd gone into Harrogate.
And then we act very romantic now when we're out together because, you never get to hold hands or anything. Like, we went to Eurovision with our friends. I remember thinking, like, we were just happy holding hands together, like, walking along. Be like, isn't this nice?
Yeah.
We just get to focus on each other and not like the little toddler that's like, pay attention to me, I'm doing this thing now.
So that was the third big one was we left Lily with your dad.
Yeah.
And we went away and he did bedtime and everything because we were coming back late from Eurovision in Liverpool.
Yeah.
But it's a weird one where I feel like a lot of the day we were spent going like, I hope Lily's okay.
Yeah.
I remember when Elias first went to nursery, spending the day just looking at pictures of him. Don't tell my boss that's what I was doing.
I find it interesting that a lot of the things that stand out for us are particular feelings we have rather than what typically are kind of sold as milestones. When they're little, you often get those cards and things that have the months
First
on and then
tooth or
first time they rolled over or just counting up in age as they get older. And I don't know that I ever look back and go, oh yeah, that's really special. That exact day was when they were 6 months.
I mean, I remember Eve's first step, but it was only a couple of months ago. I remember Elias's. The only things I really remember are the ones that I've maybe got like little videos or like I've put about them on social media, so I see them on memories. But otherwise, I think about that quite a lot at the moment because so Eve isn't sleeping through at the moment. She wakes up about generally once a night for a feed. I keep trying to remember when Elias started sleeping through, and actually it's such a blur. Like I genuinely don't know.
I mean, we often joked in the early days how our parents couldn't seem to remember what they'd done with us at particular ages, but now I can't remember what we did.
Yeah.
And it was
I'm like, no wonder they don't remember.
A few years ago.
I've got some more practical ones on my list if you want. This is a good one. First, I don't know if you'll have experienced this. Maybe you've been lucky. The first time they poo in the bath.
Yeah, especially because one of us would always be in the bath with her.
No, see, we never bath with our children because we don't really bath with shower people. Mainly because our baths are rubbish. They're both the bath in this house and our old one, not a good bath to bath in, so don't bother.
I think because Lily's quite sociable, maybe. Like she didn't find it that fascinating to be in a bath. And she just would refuse, really. But if we were in the bath, she'd be like, oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. But I think when she has a sibling, that might change.
Yeah.
Because then she's another child to sit in the bath with her. Whereas at the minute, she's like, why would I sit by myself? That seems very dull.
Yeah, I mean, we had to work quite hard to engage with him in the bath. But we'd be like sat outside. But I think probably it's one of those things, it's a bit of a 50-50 thing that some people do. And it was never a conscious choice not to. It's just that we just don't go in the bath. So.
Just happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear things other people do, or like someone hears something you do and you suddenly realise, oh, that's not what normal people do with their children. This is awkward. I think though a lot of the milestones do happen at that sort of, because that first month is so hard and you're so deep in the trenches. Yeah. Like that first meal that we had two-handed, that was whilst he was in the first month of his life, but it felt like an achievement because actually you have 3 meals a day. So 3 meals a day for 2 weeks, that's quite a long time to not eat with 2 hands. One of the things I've written was about when you realise you're actually quite enjoying it. Like, that feels like a big milestone. Like, it's all a joy and delight, but so much of it is hard. And for a long time, I feel like you really focus on that. This is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard. Yeah. And then you stop thinking about how hard it is, but you don't quite realise that you stopped. And I think then there's a moment where you go, oh, this is actually quite nice now. This is working. I'm enjoying this. I like my child. This is fun. Yeah. And I think that's like quite a big milestone, is realising that it's more positive than it is negative, actually. Yeah.
I just get quite annoyed because people go, they grow so fast, enjoy this. And I remember at the time being like, how can I enjoy this? Like, she's crying all the time. I have to do so many things. And then, like, as you get used to it, you're like, oh, okay. Now I'm kind of on top of it. I can enjoy it. But, like, the first few weeks, if anyone saw us, they're like, really treasure this time. And I'm like, should I? It's not pleasant. Like, I don't feel like I'm really treasuring it.
No one treasures being screamed at 3 a.m. No one treasures that.
And then sitting there going like, are you hungry? No, you're not hungry. Do you need burping? Like, what?
But I think that's another one of those things that like people don't share because you feel. I think for me, I feel so guilty. Because before Elias, we had 3 miscarriages. By the time I had him, I felt so lucky to have a child. And then I felt so guilty because I had the thing that I wanted and that I knew other people really wanted. So I had this amazing, wonderful thing. And so I felt really bad when it was hard. And I felt guilty for not enjoying it. And I think that's like... And then nobody talks about how hard it is because we all have this thing where we need to present how wonderful our lives are. And they're not. And it's hard. And it's okay to not enjoy every moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really helped us that your family is full of women who are very
vocal, so quite opinionated.
And they just tell it how it is.
They do, yeah.
And so I think a lot of your family feels supported in that, you all share those challenges.
Yeah. Nobody pretends to be perfect. Everybody's like, well, this sucked today. Does everyone else want to hear how terrible this was? And we're all like, yeah, okay, tell us. So, yeah, it's quite helpful when you have a lot of sisters who can all go, yeah, that's what it's like. It's horrendous.
I've got a couple of mum friends that I'm in a WhatsApp group with we did NCT together on Zoom, obviously. We did NCT together and one of them says, the moment that I realised that you were really my people was when you said, I just want to throw my child in the bin. Because we all have those moments. No one admits to them. I've never thrown my child in the bin, just to be clear.
It does make me think, though, a lot of even the examples we have of where we're kind of honest with each other and share those moments of parenting still often happen like behind closed doors and not like very publicly with the wider world.
I mean, you say that you've got a whole podcast where you talk about your parenting and you don't talk about it like it's sunshine and roses.
This is what we worry about sometimes, that we make it seem quite negative. So sometimes I'm like, maybe we should just make it a little bit.
Here's me like, I want to throw my child in the bin.
A big one that springs to my mind, I don't know, I suppose it's more for both of you. It was like returning to work, a kind of moment.
I think mine was a bit nicer because it was online, but it was still a thing where at that point it was trying to multitask.
Yeah, because you work from home.
So I work from home,
I suppose for you, the memory is more about multitasking while you're working rather than...
Yeah, I think my accomplishment was more that I was able to work.
Yeah, because you hadn't been off as long, it wasn't really a big kind of change going
No, because I only did 3 months, so...
No, you weren't off for as long, but also you didn't go back to work separately from your child.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that's like the difference as well. I think you had like the soft return, I guess, in some ways. Whereas I went back to work twice with my first, and then it was a bit different with my second. So with my first, I did shared parental leave with John, which was amazing. So you should do a whole podcast on shared parental leave. I mean, that's a great thing, isn't it? So I had 6 months off, and then I went back to work for 3 months, and John had 3 months off, and then I had another 3 months off. And so the first time I went back, I was only going back for 3 months, but I was going back full time, but it was in furlough time. So I got furloughed part time and returned to work and had to work from home, which was great. And because I was at home, I didn't have to leave him. But then the second time when I went back to work properly from my maternity leave, my first day was out of the office. I went out and went canoeing. That was my first day back at work with my team, which is great. But like, that was then my first time being away from him for a whole day. And that was like a big pull. And I think the big thing actually for me with working was your brain doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't
work anymore.
You can't think.
I still find sometimes now, I'm like, how much of like better at things was I before I had a child?
I mean, I think some of it's like the sleep deprivation as well. So I can't tell you the last time I had more than a 4-hour chunk of sleep. Because like Eve only wakes up once, but because I don't go to bed till like 11 and then her wake up's at like 2, 3 o'clock, and then they're up for the day at 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like I've never, for well over a year, I haven't slept for more than 3 to 4 hours in one go.
Yeah.
So of course my brain doesn't work. What about like for you though, Elliot? So like was like going out? Because I think a lot of, because typically like the mum is the one that's with the baby all the time, but like what was it like for you going and leaving them for the first time?
I remember going and doing a few visits and meetings with people in person for the first time. And that was definitely, I think it was just strange, like driving somewhere by myself with no one else in the car. That was a bit odd.
And you had a night away at one work thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was definitely a few months in, wasn't it?
Because I remember John feeling really guilty leaving me. And like, we're fortunate that, you know, we're in a similar position to you, that he's actually home a lot of the time. And so like I've got friends where their partners went back to work out of the house at 2 weeks and that was it. And so like my friend she's got 2 and her second, they were both C-sections. So the second was a C-section. And as you know, after a section, you really can't do very much. But her partner was a teacher. So after 2 weeks, he had to go back to work. And she was there, like, having to like lift the baby. How could she get her child to nursery when she couldn't drive, and having to do all those things? And so we're so lucky that actually a lot of that stuff we could navigate really easily. And yet when John went out, he still felt so guilty for it.
I think I felt more like that kind of typical mum thing where I was just like quite happy to have a bit of space. And
happy we was at home.
Get away for a little bit.
I can go to work.
Yeah. See ya.
It was always tricky, like, and I suppose we still have that now a little bit, where you kind of come back and then it's how do you recalibrate? Kind of like, do I put in more hours to make up for the fact that I was away, or do we just kind of wipe that under the carpet and continue like
doing a
as
normal
we have?
jobs?
Or
I remember John going away for a couple of nights and me being like obviously joking about the fact that he got to sleep, but also just being so happy for him that he got to go and have a full night's sleep. I was like, you go and enjoy it. You make the most of your full night's sleep, because I need to live vicariously through you. I don't know when I'm going to get this opportunity.
I don't always feel like I give myself permission to like relax and stuff. Like recently you've been away with Lily. You went to Disneyland
Disneyland with Lily
near Christmas. And so I had 4 or 5 days by myself. But it was like, I packed so many things into that I was like, well, I've got this time now that I don't
really
usually have. I'm going to try and make it as productive as possible.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it does make sense to try and like have some more sleep and kind of recuperate a bit. But that felt like I felt guilty for doing that, because I was like, Emma's got Lily. I should really be being productive with this time.
I remember you kept being like, I'm doing loads of jobs. And I was like, okay, all right.
Sometimes, though, I think rest is the most productive thing.
Travelling alone abroad with Lily was like a big milestone.
That's a huge milestone.
I was the only person like there. If anything went wrong, you have to keep them entertained. There's nobody else there to be like, oh, can you just do this for 5 minutes? So it would always get awkward because Lily's very independent in the minute. And I'd be like, look, Mama needs to go to the toilet and Mama can't leave you by yourself. So you need to come with me. And she got, Lily don't need toilet. I was like, I know you don't need the toilet. Mama, and it's also quite embarrassing because you're having this discussion in front of lots of people. Mama needs the toilet. Are you coming with Mama to the toilet? And you go, no, Lily, no need toilet. I was like, but Mama needs to go. Like, Lily, I'm bursting. Please just come with me and let's not have a fight about this.
It makes me think that a lot of our parenting milestones, it makes me very grateful that we're like not single parents.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was just thinking that one of the things I thought that was a parenting achievement when it happened the other day was I was out with both the kids and I needed the toilet and I had to go to the toilet with both the kids holding Eve and Elias being there and like having to cram into a cubicle. Elias is really into the hygiene bins that are in women's toilets. He really wants to play with them all the time. And so like he's trying to play with that. I'm trying to like, what can I do with Eve? I'm just gonna have to sit her on the toilet floor. And then someone set off the hand dryer. So then Eve's crying because the hand dryer's going, because she hates hand dryers, and it's a really loud one in this particular toilet, and like, so she's crying, he's trying to play with the bin, I'm just trying to have a wee, like that. But yeah, like for some people that's just their normal. Like for me that was a one-off, because most of the time if I'm out with both the kids, either it's because I'm meeting someone or it's not for long enough that I'll need a wee.
Yeah.
The first time that you get ill and you have to parent ill.
Yeah.
Being ill's not fun. Having an ill child is not fun. Parenting an ill child whilst you are ill. Ugh, not the one.
And it's even worse, often they're the one who brought the illness into the house and they're better by the time you're ill. So they're running around like a crazy thing. And you're like, I would really like to die in peace. But you're going to try and kill yourself in a second. So I need to look up and see what you're doing.
I think that's one of those times where I'm very much like, survive, not thrive.
Yes.
Survive, not thrive. That's quite often my mantra. Survive, not thrive. If we all got through the day alive, yes, the television was on from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. Yes, we had chocolate biscuits for lunch.
Yeah.
But are we all alive? Yes. Probably similarly to you, like I'm quite fortunate in that I've got loads of nieces and nephews. Almost an excessive amount, which meant that I'd spent loads of time around children before I had my own. And I think that makes a lot of those things a lot less scary. Whereas like when you're a first-time parent and you haven't had much experience with kids, I think some of those things are a lot harder. But because I was like, a couple of people said to me like, you're not really like a first-time parent. And I was like, I've looked after a lot of children on my own. So I'm kind of used to the bits where they fall over and you don't really care.
Like, we don't worry too much, particularly. Kind of had a sense of what we were doing. Like, it was hard and you still get, like, the parent guilt and stuff, but not quite in the same kind of worrying over every little detail.
Yeah. But I think, like, this is when I was thinking we were quite prepared for children. It was still a big shock to the system.
Yes.
I always wonder if you hadn't had that experience, how much of a bigger shock it would have been. Because I was like, I've looked after, like, loads of nephews and my niece. Like, I'll be fine. And it's still a big shock to the system. But I sometimes wonder, if I hadn't looked after them, how much of a bigger shock would it have been when I was like, I've been left alone with this child and I'm meant to know what I'm doing with them, and it feels like quite a big job.
And there's so much that you don't get told, you don't get taught is normal. We've got friends who ended up in A&E with their baby like the first night they came home from hospital because their child was throwing up, like, and it was really mucousy sick, which is absolutely normal, but they didn't know that. And nobody that medically that they spoke to picked up on this, that it was just a normal thing. And they had a really awful experience because of it. And because they didn't have that experience and nobody had taught them, because nobody teaches you how to parent children and nobody tells you about what's normal and what's not. And, you know, it's something we talk about quite a lot about things like car seats and weaning and things like that, is that there's so many different rules and things that nobody tells you.
No.
And if nobody tells you, how do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I always have a thing about this. But it's even like topics I didn't know what Montessori was before I became a parent, or like any of that kind of teaching and learning. And then suddenly, like, it was words I started using and other people were like, so what is that? But like, well, and then you kind of find yourself explaining things and you go, I didn't know I knew so much about so many obscure parenting topics now in my brain, that just to people outside of parenting, that makes no sense, because why would you care whatever these things
But
are?
it's the fact you have to go and find those things out for yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
Some of these things are just like preferences, right? They're just things that you choose to do with your child. But some of them are like fundamental safety things. But there's no one big rule book. So there's no way, like, safe sleep is a really big one. It's something that I'm really, really like over the top obsessive about safe sleep, because I was convinced that I was absolutely convinced that Elias was going to die, and so I knew those rules like so obsessively, and now I see people do things that are unsafe with their sleep with their children sleep. And I'm like...
Yeah. Well, it's like that they sell, like, cot bumpers and things.
Right.
And in my head, I'm like, why are you selling that? Like, it's been proven that's dangerous. Why sell it? Because in my head, I would assume, just ban it because you're not meant to have it. Like, why still make them?
The sleeping pod things, that they renamed them, so they're no longer called sleepyheads, they're called docker tots, because they're a good place to put your child down. But they were originally marketed as a sleeping thing, so people see them as a sleeping thing, but they're not safe, but they're still being sold. I don't envy you having to edit this because there's so many tangents. It's my biggest problem with the podcast is that I always want to join in. I've always got so much that I want to say. And I can't because you're just there on my TV talking. Because I do actually watch it on YouTube. I am a YouTube...
Thank you very much. But thank you for being like a big listener and supporter of the podcast, as well as coming on and chatting with us.
It's very... I feel like I'm a celebrity now. I've been on the podcast. So.
Thank you, Anna, for being a wonderful guest. And as I said last time with Vicky, give me a good little chit-chat without the children for once.
A little chit-chat, rather like a long chit-chat. It's been fun editing that down to a concise number of minutes.
Tell I don't do the editing.
But some fantastic content, I think, throughout that episode there that you've been listening to. I really enjoyed listening to us all chat and bits that Anna was able to share with us. Some really funny stories and some quite deep and kind of personal, honest conversation as well. I think it's a really great mix.
Good. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm glad he thinks it's such a good episode. I was going to say, is this my craft this week of doing I can't remember say it now.
Yes, it is.
My plant hanger.
Macrame.
Whatever the thing is, it's what I've done this week, and it turned out better than I thought it would.
Yeah, happy with your ropey thing? Yes,
I've made some before and I realised I did 4 bits instead of 3 bits. So this one is a bit different from my others. I think my others are more stable. But it looks pretty, makes me happy.
Yeah. If you're interested in what we're talking about, then pop over to YouTube and you can watch us make some crafts along with listening to the audio.
Yep.
Like Anna, who watches on YouTube, you can also watch along with what we're up to.
But you don't have to be like Anna. Like, I only listen to Spotify, I'll be honest.
Yeah, listen wherever you like. As usual, please do all the clickety things.
The clickety-clackety.
Yeah, the stuff we want you to... Yeah.
Subshare.
Subshare. Don't subshare. That's not what we want. We want you to...
It's a new word. It's for subscribing and sharing. You should share.
Sharing is a particularly good one for us. We'd love this to reach more people and for more parents to get involved and hear some of the conversation, to be part of the community. If you've enjoyed this episode like we have, then do message a friend, a parent, someone, maybe, I don't know, whoever you know who might enjoy it too. And say, I enjoyed this, you should listen to it. Don't Wake the Baby is a project by us, and we are supported by the Kairos movement and the Methodist Church.
Whoop, whoop.
Just so you're aware. We haven't got a parenting story this week because we've had a whole episode of having a guest on sharing Anna's kind of stories and different experiences. But come back next week and we'll have some parenting stories from listeners, and we'll be talking more about other topics and things.
Yeah, so we actually know what the next topic's going to be as well. So
there you go, prepared. But if you'd like to share a parenting story with us, it could just be a little anecdote, something funny that's happened. It could be a full-fledged story of a meltdown or something that's gone wrong or a parenting fail. Just let us know, message us, and we'd love to share it on the podcast. I think that's the end. Are we at the end? Is this the end?
Yeah.
Is there anyone still listening? Are you still out there? Do you just switch off? Catch you next topic. God bless.
Good night.